Birds, sweet potato birds. That's what we're going to start this show with. Greg, you weren't expecting that, were you? Can you hear me, Greg?
Oh, we don't have Greg.
Oh, Greg's frozen and blinking and can't hear us. That's a great start.
3 times if you're in crisis, Greg.
I know. So I don't even think he can realize he can't hear us. This is actually quite kind of entertaining. I don't know. Hi, Greg. Can you hear us?
Oh.
Hey, Greg.
Oh, what?
Can you hear us, Greg?
I can hear now. I can hear now. Yes.
Okay. I'm
glitching a little bit, but I can hear you. Yes.
I was going to open the show.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're really lagged, man. You got to like refresh and come back in or something. Your internet's terrible and you're blurry. But anyway, we're going to start Outwired here. I was going to start this with something creative. I was going to say sweet potato birds, Scott, and then like Lisa, go ahead and hit the little camera icon here. I don't even know if you saw this, Scott, but it like this AI generated. Remember our conversation we had about sweet potato birds like a bunch of weeks ago when we were talking about Outwired? And so I generated this and I sent it to Scott. And so I think what some of the things that we'll just do is like a random gimmick on the show is we'll just have a random like bird of the week that we'll just promote so that, you know, Greg is comfortable. He's in his own native kind of scenario, all that kind of stuff.
I appreciate that.
So are you back now? Or are you not lagged?
I don't know. You tell me. Does everything seem better?
I think you seem okay.
Better.
Now. Yeah,
he's a little pixelated, but he's better. The voice is at least insane.
All right, let's see what happens.
Maybe you need to advocate for an infrastructure bill there in Ohio.
If you need to finish me,
do they have tech in Ohio? Is that like a thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we could. Well, you should know. You left. So yes and no. It depends on the day. The plate in my head is probably messing up the reception.
All right, that's all right. We'll work on it for next week. But anyway, so welcome to Outwired. This is our first episode. We don't have a script. We don't have a plan. Well, we do have a little bit of a light plan. But I want to set the foundation for what this is actually going to be, because many of you have seen me on MC Fireside Chats. You've obviously seen Scott, who recurs as a guest with us one week, as well as Greg. But this is going to be different. This is not going to be. There's not going to be any guests on here. At least we don't foresee any guests being on here. Like, we want this to be a conversation about artificial intelligence, about technology, about data and analytics and reporting, and the shit that is going to work for you at your campground because we've seen it work. We've proven it's going to work. Either I've done it for a marketing client, or Scott has studied it in a data and research report, or Greg has executed it as his campground, or for one of his consultants, or for one of his people that he consults with at Camp Strategy. But we just know this stuff works, period. There's end of story, right? That doesn't mean it's going to work the same for you all the time. It doesn't mean that there's not studies that you need to do to refine the approach of who your specific person is, or your target audience, or whatever else, right? But this is unfiltered. This is uncensored. This is, I already said shit once, and now I said shit twice. Now I said shit three. Anyway, I'm going to stop counting.
I'll put a counter on the screen for you.
I feel like I could have been caught in a loop there forever.
Yeah.
That was quite dangerous. But it's called Outwired right behind me. And the idea here is, again, just like, we really want to be truthful with you. We don't want to be filtered. We don't want to come at a lens of like, I can't say this thing because it might upset somebody. If you're watching this show and you are not uncomfortable at the bare minimum, then you're doing it wrong. Perhaps your headphones are off. Because that's our intention, is to make you uncomfortable, is to speak the truth of how we see the world. And that doesn't mean that we're always going to be right, or that our opinions are the Bible, but they're based on data. They're based on real world experience. And our goal here is to prep you for what is happening now, especially, and what is going to happen in the future. So I want to just toss it over to Greg and Scott briefly for their like, guys, I would just love for you to tell me what you hope to achieve as we move forward with Outwired.
Scott, would you like the floor?
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll start. Well, I didn't really start. Brian started, but anyway, yeah, I think the points that Brian's making are really what we want to get out there. That it's like there's dog shadow over my shoulder.
What is,
We have
is
dog
that a
issues.
thing?
That makes it
How do you know
great,
that's
man.
a dog?
We have dog issues. I'm just going to warn everybody in advance. There are
But it
dog
could
issues.
be like
in
a
Sunset.
giant spider or some kind of like man-eating zombie cat, or like, shouldn't you look? Instead
I
of
know what
assuming?
it is.
Okay, all right.
It's
This
anyway.
is why we have Scott on the show, because he knows everything. He doesn't have to actually go study it.
In my view, it's one of the things that's most important as a researcher, and I've been doing research a long, long time, longer than I care to admit, is that if we aren't like brutally honest, if we don't scrape away all that stuff, you miss out on stuff. In my background, when I was at the university, a while back, we used to have on Friday what we would call grand rounds. And what we would do is sit around and someone would present their research. And we would go around the table, around the room, and everybody would just take shots at it. They would just like critique it in the most brutal way possible. And it was all designed so that you got better at what you do. It's like it made you develop a thick skin too. There was crying. There was crying in the room at times. But there wasn't one person who walked away from that and wasn't better at what they did. That their research, that their studies weren't better because of that process. And that to me is what's necessary. We have to ask those questions. We have to scrape everything away and sometimes maybe be a little bit raw, a little bit brutal about it, because it's going to generate conversation and it's going to make you better. And that to me is what it's all about. And again, as a researcher, that's our job. Our glass is half empty. It's half empty. It typically is. So that's our role. If we don't do that, who's going to? We don't always put on the rose-colored glasses, and we're not going to here.
And like that honestly really resonates with me, right? Like, because when you started saying that, and I know I was like half paying attention on my computer because I was trying to log into ChatGPT and get my verification code, which I'm going to do right now and multitask. But like, it really resonates with me because early, I don't want to say my career, but like I went to a class when Insider Perks first started. I don't know if anybody knows this or if I've ever told you guys this, but when it first started, it was like travel and tourism videos. That was the whole thing. So we were going around and like CVBs and DMOs were paying for us to come and stay in hotels. And we were doing like videos of museums and attractions and restaurants and stuff like that in the city, right? And so in the beginning, I actually went to Washington, D.C. And at the time, Travel Channel was having an academy there taught by a gentleman named Michael Rosenblum, who like I credit a lot with like getting me off my ass and doing what I'm doing now, right? The other person's Mike Gass from KOA, who introduced me to KOA, which I'm not sure if he regrets or not. I have, but whatever. So, but so like I went to this class and it was a 4-day like boot camp where you were in DC at the Travel Channel headquarters, and you like Michael Rosenblum is this great like CBS News correspondent, like is born in the UK, very, very big in video journalism circles and forward thinking and like all that kind of stuff, right? And so like, and I didn't know who he was before we got here, but we were sitting in a room right there, and like he would give us an assignment, right? Like go out into DC and be like creative, come back and shoot a short video of something happening, like a personal story, something like that, and come back, and then we're going to edit it in class, and we're going to focus on telling a story, like a short news story, like thing that the Travel Channel would want or something like that, right? About tourism. And so I went out and did that. I don't remember what I did it on. I think I did it on Arlington National Cemetery, right? But I didn't have really any like huge creative experience back then. Like I thought I made a really great video that was interesting, and it was in the style of what I had been making for other tourism bureaus and stuff. And like I came back and like it was my video and everybody else's. He would put them up on screen in front of the whole class, and he'd be like, "That fucking sucks. What the fuck were you thinking? That is the most horrific thing I've ever seen in my life. How dare you come back and show me?" And that's what it was. And so like you, I don't know if that's how deep it was with you, Scott, but like that's what it was with me. Like he would rip apart you to make you understand that you can do better. And like the amount of people who just quit and walked out, like it wasn't a big thing. It was like 40 or 50 people in the room, right? But the amount of people who quit and walked out was probably half the class. They couldn't take it. And like I was pissed at him for like a day. but then I realized like, hey, wait a minute. This man knows way more than me. He's been in the industry a long time. I need to listen to what he's saying and hear what he's trying to teach me, because he's not just trying to insult me. So that resonates with me. Anyway, Greg, please.
Yes. What was the question? Where was I?
What you hope to get out of Outwired as we do
Yeah.
this show, and I try to log into ChatGPT.
First of all, I truly hope to get a non-glitchy connection. Hopefully we've gotten past that, because I was definitely glitching hardcore. But, you know, to be honest, I was thinking about this a lot today. Reciprocity. So I've given, I try to share my knowledge. Like, okay, of course I get paid for it in the consulting side. Like it's how I make a living, but I try to share it as openly and freely as possible, because I have been the recipient of tons of knowledge from people in the industry, from, you know, you and Scott, Larry Brownfield, Jeff, my partner, Hoffman. So many people have shared with me that I feel like this is a great opportunity to continue to share back in, as you put it, an unfiltered, unscripted, really honest way. Because as Scott said, if you don't pare down to the very basic, if you don't strip away the unnecessary and get down to strictly the necessary, you know, are you sugarcoating? Are you blowing smoke up somebody's backside? I don't do that in my work. And so it's really nice to have a forum where we can talk this way openly. And so I want reciprocity. I want to give back as much as I've gotten. And I also want to learn from you two and the conversations that we're going to have. And I really look forward to that part, because Brian, as you know, I got that nerdy quote in my email signature, but I love it. It reminds me every day to be humble.
Does it suck that I haven't read your email signature? I know you were given a
no, of course not. Nobody reads anybody's email signature. I was trying to give you an out, but it's fine if you don't want to take it. But well, no, that's okay.
We're not sugarcoating shit here. That's what the whole show is about.
Okay. All right. So I'm lying already. That's fine. So yeah, so it says, and it's a quote by Neil deGrasse Tyson, and it says, as you know, as the area of your knowledge expands, so too does the perimeter of your ignorance. And I love that, because it's absolutely true, and it's easy to visualize. And the more you learn, the all that does is expand that perimeter. So there's even more to learn, and there's even more area that you're still ignorant to. I love that. I try to live by that every day, and just continually keep learning and sharing what I know, and hoping that reciprocity will bring more knowledge back to me. So yeah, that's I'm really looking forward to that part of this, of the reciprocity, the give and take, and seeing how people react to this kind of honest, unfiltered view of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing, like, and I really am paying attention. I'm just trying to multitask at the same time and open up some stuff, some cool stuff we want to show you in a second here. But like, it's one of those things where I thought of opening the show like that, right? And you know, like, I think I talked to you on the phone a couple times, Greg, where I'm like, I'm just going to open the show this way. And then something came out of my mouth, and I like had no plan and no recollection and no script. And so I probably could have opened the show even better than we did today, but that doesn't really matter. But like, one of the things I tossed around in my head of talking about was kindness, right? And you look at like our intention to upset people, our intention to be truthful with people. And there's going to be a certain segment of people who like we're not for. There's going to be a certain segment of people who don't want to hear that, who get offended by what we say, who vehemently disagree, who whatever, right? But like, we don't have an agenda here, as you just said. And I think that's really important to point out and share, is that like all of us are successful in our own right. You know, you're successful at Camp Strategy. You were successful before that with your own company. You were successful before that as a campground owner. Scott, you're very successful as Karen Consult. Is it Karen or Karn? I like,
You can say it either way. Just like you can say my name,
we're
Bear or
trying to
Bar.
give truth here, Scott. We need truth.
The truth is, I don't care.
Right? That's honest. I mean, I can't ask for more than that, right?
I say Karen, by the way. I say
Okay.
Karen. And I
So-
pronounce my name Bar. But if you say Bear, I'm not offended. If you say Karen, I'm not offended.
Okay, perfect. So hopefully our rest of our audience is forgiving, as you are. So Scott, you're very successful with Karen Consulting Group. You obviously been working for KOA for a number of years, with KOA for a number of years, as a partner with their North American camping reports and all that kind of stuff. You have tons of clients that you deal with on a day-to-day basis for research and development. And so, like, and I've been in the industry for 15 years and have 500 plus clients that we work with on a marketing, advertising, AI side, own Modern Campground, that kind of thing. Like, you know, we're all like, we all could be in some meeting right now, I'm sure, with a client or a potential client, you know, either making more money or giving advice or enhancing the way those people view us, like, or whatever, right? Like, there's endless, like, my calendar's full of it. So is yours, Greg, and so is yours, Scott. We go meeting to meeting to meeting. And so I think that's very important to say too, is that this is coming from a place of kindness, right? Like, I don't have to be here. Greg doesn't have to be here. Scott doesn't have to be here. We want to be here because no one else is saying this stuff. Like, we want, and to be clear, I'm not slighting anyone else. Like, there are lots of good podcasts and lots of good shows and lots of good, you know, YouTube channels and things like that. And they're all great. You know, when I started MC Fireside Chats 4 years ago, it was like the show because nothing else really existed. And now I feel like everybody has a show where they're interviewing guests. And that's great because their perspectives are different. They have a different tone. They have different guests. They tell different stories. They have, and I hope, like, I think it's Erica Edmonds, maybe. Is that the name of the Sun Outdoors manager who's starting the new podcast? Like,
I think
she
you're
messaged
right.
me on LinkedIn the other day, and she's like, "Hey, I would love to get my, you know, my show covered in Modern Campground. You know, I know, like I realize I don't want to step on any toes here, like, but I'm like, you're not stepping on any toes. Do you know the amount of people that need knowledge and to hear stories and to hear all the things, like?" And I sent her to Akari, my editor, and like, go cover her. And we wrote up a great article, and I guess she loved it. She was sharing it all over social media. But like, I wish nothing but the best of success for everybody. Even like, I mean, Woodall's, you could call him my mortal enemy. Like, I love Ben Quiggle. I think they have a different slant to the news than Modern Campground does. I think they're vital to the success of this industry. Do I want to destroy them one day? Of course I do. I'm an entrepreneur. That's what right? But I want to do it in the nicest, kindest way possible because I'm friends with Ben Quiggle, right? But the point is that, like, we're here because we want to be kind to you. We want to share what we have gathered freely with you. We want to share the data and insights. We want to deep dive. We want to give you our thought processes because you need to know this stuff. This is, you know, and like, guys, please jump in so I'm just not talking the whole time. I know I can run my mouth and just keep talking, but like, I want to, I really want to just communicate. And so often, like, even when I'm in client calls, right? Even when I'm in client calls or on MC Fireside Chats or a guest in another podcast or whatever else, like, I always say, like, I don't know where the line is. Where do I stop talking? You know, where do I have to censor myself to not upset somebody? And I don't want that line to be here. But I need people to know it's coming from a place of kindness. It's not like I'm intentionally trying to piss you off or anger you. Does that make
No, it
sense?
just comes naturally to you. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
naturally. Well, you're looking at my face. I mean, you look at my face, it pisses you off and angers you.
Well, you know, and that goes back to Scott's other work, which is the Karen Consulting Group, not Karen Consulting Group, where he works for like angry soccer moms that jump out of their car.
Do you?
And they come to that's another slice of, I hope I didn't reveal too much, Scott.
I really feel terrible for Karens.
We
Because
have
you know,
a
like,
pretty
all
strong-
Karens are not
I
that
know.
way.
that name is, they got the raw deal, a
Yeah.
total
We
raw
have,
deal.
we have a
Not
strong
fair.
presence. We have a strong presence with the Karens. You know, just the inversion of 2 letters makes all the difference in the world.
Indeed.
And no, it's interesting, Brian, when you talk about the talking thing too, because like I tell people all the time, it's like if you'll listen, I'll talk all day.
Yeah.
And I said that once in the presentation. I did this study. It was with high-end chocolates. Great topic. It was great. We did this whole like, and I got them to do the presentation. I was like, oh, what do we have? We have like an hour, 45 minutes plus 15 for questions. And their CEO was on there and was like, well, didn't you do a lot more research? And I go, and I actually said what I say all the time. Anyone who knows me is probably sick of me saying it. It's like, well, I can talk all day if you let me. And he goes, we'll do it. He's like, go through the whole thing.
And those people are out there, right? Like, but they
Yeah.
are like, I think they're out there in larger numbers, which is why I'm hoping this show will end up being valuable to a lot of people. I think that they just don't have the time because they're running from meeting to meeting, just like we are, right?
Yep.
Like, get to your point. Tell me what, like, I was in a couple client meetings last week, or maybe it was the week before, where they were just like, get to the point, man. Like, we like what you're saying, but like, we want to know how you're going to execute it for us because we don't have, not that we don't care, but we don't have the time. Like, our business is critical, right? And so not everybody is like that. And I think in another situation or setting, those people are not like that either. But like, I'll continue to talk because like part of my passion is sharing that experience and that knowledge with people. And I'll give it away to the detriment of my company, right? Like, this is one of my biggest weaknesses. And I'm sure, I don't know, maybe if you guys have seen this, but this is one of my biggest weaknesses is like, I fucked up in the beginning of my company and undervalued what I was selling. And then because I realized that I was in an industry where at the time I started, and some people are still like this, but most people aren't. But at the time I started, like, I couldn't convince people to spend $75 a month to have me post on Facebook for them. And so knowing that I was in a niche where I had stumbled into and I hadn't really built a brand and all that back in 2011, I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing this for cheap because I just want to get clients and like I want to impact their business. And like I didn't run myself into the ground because I was enjoying it, but I was like, I've been working 100-hour weeks for 15 years. I emailed a client this morning and they're like, why isn't this done? I'm like, I'm trying my best for you. Like, I'm literally working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I'm not complaining about that, but like, I'm trying to get it done for you. But I dug my own grave there, right? Like, I dug my own grave by undervaluing my services, by not explaining what was or was not included, all that kind of stuff. And so that's my truth, right? Like, I screwed myself. I'm not blaming anybody else. But all those people, I don't even know how I got into that story. Like, see, this is how I just talk. But like, um, I don't know, man. Like, it's all about love. It's all about kindness. Like, and I'm sorry that we're gonna upset the crowd here a little bit and not say what people want us to say. But like, it is what it is, man. It is
No,
what it is.
you just gotta speak it. You gotta speak the truth. If you don't, I mean, and I actually say this to clients. It's like if you don't do that, you put your credibility in your brand at
Yep.
risk. It's like you got to be authentic. You have to, and people will pick up on that. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It's a big deal. So, and I think that again, it leads to success when you are willing to be unfiltered and excuse me, willing to be blunt.
Can you
And
please not die on the first show? The second show is fine, but not the first show.
no guarantees on anything. No, but to be, to have that authentic approach to what you do, I think people appreciate it. Some don't. And I've been jettisoned from, I've had clients in other sectors that are, Fortune 50 companies, and I've been booted because they didn't like hearing what I had to say. And I'm okay with that because I feel like I'm in a better place now. But You have to. And I think people appreciate it. That's what they need. That's our role. It's our job. It's like that.
You
That's
should you
that's
should
what really.
briefly touch on your confirmation bias thing that you told me the other day. That
Oh
anecdote.
yeah, yeah. That's and I've had this conversation with several people recently. For whatever reason, it seems to be popping up a lot, and that is the whole idea of you know I'll just speak about research here for a moment, and that is people who want to confirm what they already know. And if you do that, it's a setup. You're setting yourself up. You're setting everybody else up. My approach, and anyone who's ever worked with me knows that my approach is exploratory. It's like we're going to explore. The first rule of research is don't do what has already been done. Don't try to confirm something that you already know. If you have objective information, don't ask a question like on a survey or whatever of something that you have in your internal data, because one, you're probably going to be disappointed. And as someone who works in survey research, it's like, I'm just telling you, don't do it. It's like, go out there, find new information. But if your goal is to confirm stuff, why do it? Don't do it. Save your money. Save your money. Go buy something else.
I think
Don't.
there's almost an arrogance with it, right? Like, because I've fallen victim to that too, right? Where like I know I'm right. Let me go out and get the data. Oh shit, right? But I think there's almost an arrogance to like wanting to confirm your data to validate your point to be able to say it's right.
Sure, I'm right. Let's go gather information to do that. It's like no. It's like no. Let's not. Let's not. Let's move on. Let's move on from that. Because again, I can in my career I've had a few of those assignments, and every single one of them was a disaster. Um, and I don't like talking about my disasters, but it's happened, and it's
We've all
true.
had
Right?
them.
And you can sit there and try to explain it until you're blue in the face, but it doesn't matter. So move on from it. It's like move on. Explore, find new ground, but don't just confirmatory bias. It's gonna the other part of that, and I'm sure one of the reasons you brought it up, Ryan, was like it brings that inherent bias with it. Like everything you look at through that lens is going to be biased. Maybe you'll question everything else. Maybe it impacts your strategy. Maybe it impacts how you look at what your whole organization is doing, because that is your bias. That's your lens. And it's like, and if you do that, you're doing yourself, your company, whomever you're working with, a disservice. Leave it at the door and move on.
And it's hard, right? Like, no, again, we talked about like at the end of the Fireside Chats episode. I know you had to leave, Scott, but we were talking about some, things about how like most education is worthless, and in school for kids, like obviously you need to learn how to count and write, but most of the education they do now in a world where we're headed to with AI and robotics is kind of worthless. But like we were touching on that kind of stuff, that truth, and I think it's just I don't know. Like there's just so much to unpack there, right? But like that, but all of us suffer from that. All of us suffer from that. This is my perspective of the world, however it was shaped, right? And so like you take me for example, like my perspective of the world is like everything's AI and everything's robots, and like I know what's coming and I research the heck out of this stuff, and I spend 16 hours a day working and go downstairs and watch a bunch of YouTube videos on AI or SEO or whatever it is, right? Robots, and so I know like what is here now and what is quickly coming. And so when you hear that come out of my mouth, like I feel like in my head, right? Like, what do you mean you don't understand it? How do you not get this? Like, how do you not comprehend that this is today, not tomorrow or next week or next year? Why have you not opened ChatGPT when I've been saying this for 2.5 years and logged in and understand the possibility of it? But like I have to realize that's my perception. That's my world that I live in, and other people live in a world that like I don't know. I don't want to say as lucky as me, but like I went through my 12 years of raising a stepdaughter, and I went through my struggles of having no time to run the business and balance relationships way back when. And so now I'm at a point where like I have some employees who like allow me the freedom to do more of that research into AI and robotics and keep up. But I don't, sometimes I forget to think like people have a job or 2 jobs sometimes. They're running their campground and they have kids and they have spouses and they got to go to church and they whatever it is, right? And they don't just have this ability to sit down and open up ChatGPT and play. Like we'll get to that maybe later, right? But well, ChatGPT for sure. But like I don't want to dive down this rabbit hole too much. But like at the same time, a lot of people do waste a lot of time, right? Like if I mean again, and that's not to say I'm judging you. I'm not saying you're spending your time wrong. But like if you are on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook and scrolling for 45 minutes or an hour every single night watching videos, then you have time. You're just choosing to spend it there.
All right, I feel like this is directed at me, and
Is it directed to you? Are you on
I will
TikTok
say,
watching
I
me?
will just say that if you haven't seen a blue Quaker parakeet singing bacon pancakes while he dances on his mom's shoulder, then you haven't seen anything. So whatever 45 minutes I decide to spend, if you have not seen that, you have not lived.
Lisa.
Okay? That's all I'm saying.
Lisa's running camera for me. Lisa,
All I'm saying.
30 minutes and 45 seconds is the timestamp. You need to go look at that bird name, and that's going to be our featured bird of the week next
Baking
week.
pancakes, making bacon pancakes. And I think
So
you
we'll
guys
pull
touched
that.
on something that's really important though too, is perspective and perception. And I love this because I spend a lot of time thinking about this, and I try to blend it into my presentations, like if I'm at Ojai or something. But everybody's got a different perspective, which is why our perceptions are sometimes different. I mean, we can say that the world around us is objective reality, but nobody sees it the same. And that's because our perspectives are different. If I'm 3 feet from something, maybe it looks red to me, but Brian, if you see it as green, it's green. There's nothing I can do to change that. Your eyes interpret it differently than mine.
Yep.
Until we figure out that I'm 3 feet away and you're 3 miles away. Then we have to try to see, can we adjust our perspectives to be somewhat more aligned? And that's the hard part. That's what you were talking about before when you said, some people might not like this show. Some people maybe don't want to hear that truth. Going back to what Scott was talking about with confirmation bias, right? Changing your perspective can be painful. It can hurt it because it's growth, and growth is not always easy. In fact, if you do it right, I kind of think it should hurt a little bit. I mean, if you ever worked out and not been sore the next day, you probably weren't working out very hard. You need.
I did once, and then I was like, "Dad, I'm not working out anymore."
Okay, all right. So your perspective was changed after one workout.
Yep.
There you go. You had it fixed. But yeah, and hopefully this show represents growth for the 3 of us and for the audience, because then it's really beneficial. But if you don't know Plato's allegory of the cave, look it up. I'm not going to go into it because I can't do it exactly one for one, but it's a perfect play on perception versus perspective, and why one informs the other. Perception is the lens we view the world through, but perspective focuses that lens. So they're both equally important, and maybe so more your perspective, because that is someplace that we can work to find middle ground, that we can get our clients to see things from a different point of view, and that can change everything for them. If you get somebody who says, I don't need to be on social media, Brian, why should I be on social media? You can't really change their perception of that, but you could maybe change their perspective, which would then inform their perception and bring them over to your side, maybe, right?
Like what? Like, I don't want to be on social media. I hate social media.
Right.
I think it's a complete time-sucking waste of time, but also like I, sell it for business. So, but like I see the value there, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting thing to contemplate. And like I don't want it to come across either as like an arrogant thing either from our perspective, because we're not saying that our perceptions and perspectives can't be changed.
That's
we're not
exactly
saying
right.
that we're the only people that are correct in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
We're just giving you our perception and perspective, which happens to, in the 3 of our experiences, be different than what we're hearing most other places.
Yeah.
Which is going to allow us to talk well together, and hopefully we'll disagree at some point. But like, I think do we have, guys, did you bring like,
are we going to do a toast?
Yeah, we're going to do a toast to the show. We're not going to do shots though. We're just going to sip it. This is a lovely whiskey that is delicious, Greg. I don't know if you can see that. It's Amrit. I think I might be pronouncing that wrong. It's an Indian
Very close
whiskey.
to my last name pronunciation. All right. Amrit.
It's an Indian whiskey. and it's just very delicious.
Never had it.
So I'm gonna,
We'll have to look that one up.
yeah, I'm gonna pour that. Scott, do you have whiskey, or did you?
Yeah, it's in my fish mug.
He's drinking.
Oh,
water.
hey, that's nice.
He's drinking water. You know he is. I bought a transparent cup. I thought I was gonna bring a wood glass up here, and then I realized like people would probably think like I wasn't really drinking whiskey, so I bought the transparent one so that you guys would know.
Yeah, just so everybody understands, this is just this is like a little lavender tea I poured up earlier. I'm not drinking with anything.
Is it really? Like it looks.
No, it's not.
What is
no,
it? It's watered down, man. It
no,
looks like.
no. That's an Ardbeg 10, buddy. That's an Ardbeg 10. That's a nice Isla Scotch, nice
not a
peaty,
Scotch.
earthy.
Okay.
Hold on, I have to put. I don't know why, but for some reason, not only do you need your pinky up, but you have to put a finger in your ear when you sniff it as well.
Oh, just that. Okay. I was about to try the whole like finger.
I hope I've been doing it wrong all this time.
Yeah.
Oh, it tastes so much better with the.
All right, so gentlemen, to pissing people off in the nicest way possible. How about that? Is that
I've
a good
been doing it my whole life.
Yeah, I don't know about in the nicest way possible, but I've been at that for a while as well. Cheers, guys.
All right. All right.
Yummy.
So let's dive into this stuff. I think where I want to start, like we're going to get to ChatGPT, and we're going to talk about how, well, the entire world of consumer discovery is going to change. Is changing right now. How robots are going to visit your website and not humans. How your page views and users are going to go down, and how you're royally screwed if you're not doing SEO and all kinds of fun stuff later. But like, I feel like that's the hook maybe to keep people here a little bit longer. And we'll talk about ChatGPT frequently and AI frequently. But I'd love to start with Scott and talk about like some of his recent research that he's done here, because, and I don't just mean hospitality highlights, the recent one that you talked about, Scott, but just generally speaking, some of the stuff that you've come across in the last few months. And I think I want to start there for two reasons. One is because I have to go to the washroom because I drank some water, and I'm going to let Scott talk. Unfiltered, that's what we promised them, okay? You can't blame me. Two is because I think it's really interesting, some of the conversations that you and I have had, Scott, and to a certain extent, you and Greg and I have had too, but never kind of together. But just about what we expect from the industry this year in 2025. And there's a lot of, we should probably just go for it and rip the Band-Aid off. A lot of this cautiously optimistic bullshit that's coming from people of like a spin phrase of, we don't ever want to say it might be bad or it might be down or it might be different. And I think there's certainly room for us to always be cautiously optimistic, glass half full. But when you're using it as a way to deceive people, and I'm not saying that anybody's doing that willingly, to be clear. I don't think anybody's intentionally trying to deceive people. But when you're doing it in a way that sugarcoats things, then I think that has the unintended consequence of misleading people who aren't as informed about the situation as you are, whatever that situation may be, right? And so I would love to just have that frank conversation, because I don't think this economy is going to be good this year. I don't think people are going to be up this year as a general rule of averages across the board. I think there are exceptions to that where, like, if you've done no marketing and you start doing marketing, of course you're going to do better than you did last year, right? Because you did nothing before. Well, maybe not of course, but chances are good, right? And there's certainly going to be pockets of, resorts who do well because people shift their behaviors and travel patterns and stay closer to home or go to this city and not that city. And so that's not a blanket statement that everybody's going to have a terrible year. But like lots of the reservation systems are saying this, we expect it to be flat. We expect it to be, flat to down 1.5%. And remember, that's the cautiously optimistic phrase because they can't scare people. But like we're in trouble here in both the United States and where I'm at in Canada. And this is not a political conversation, to be clear. Yes, and again, let's make people uncomfortable, right? Yes, what Donald Trump is doing is going to cause more inflation and your prices to increase. But this is not caused by Donald Trump. And I'm not saying I'm for or against Donald Trump. I like pieces of what he's doing, and I don't like pieces of what he's doing. But we're not going to get into politics. The point is that if you take away the people who pick the fruit goes up in price. If you increase tariffs on my country where I'm living now, Canada, prices go up. That's just basic economics. And so I understand he has a goal and a strategy behind all that, and I'm not here to pick apart that, but like that's all going to hit consumers' bottom lines. That's going to increase the cost of fruit. And when it comes down to the anecdote I always use on the phone with clients is like when it comes down to it, like you can say camping is recession proof. People already own their RV and they might go out and do this stuff anyway. And that's going to be truer to a certain extent than it is with hotels, probably for the RVer crowd anyway. But if it comes down to it and it continues on the path that we're at some point for a lot of families, it's going to be, does Johnny eat a tomato today? Like, does Johnny have food or do I go camping? What do you think they're going to choose at that point? So, Scott, go for it.
All right. So, are you going to go to the washroom?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the washroom now.
We're going to talk about Brian while he's gone.
Definitely. Way to leave us hanging with that big flap of positivity over us. Thanks, Brian. Wow, this will be fun. Go ahead, Scott.
So here's the thing: when the outdoors has its space, it's there. It's always going to be there. To be somewhat contrary to Brian, we work in a great industry.
Yep.
The outdoors. Who doesn't love the outdoors? However, there are, as I mentioned earlier, there are certain sectors, there are growth sectors, there are certain sectors that are not. What is happening is the market, the guests, the travelers are changing. Their motivations are changing. Their behavior is changing based on these factors. As Brian mentioned, the economy. Obviously, the economy drives a lot of it. So for me, everything's a numbers game. It's like if you have someone who normally takes 2 weeks of luxury travel and they have to cut back, well, that luxury travel is now going to become something less than luxury. But they're still going to travel. The person who normally takes 2 weeks maybe just takes 1 week of vacation. What we live in right now is an era of the casual participant, the person, the family who in the past may have participated at a much higher level. Now they're not. Fewer trips, fewer instances. You can go out and look at all the research in the outdoor recreation sector. It's like it's down. The number of participants is up, but the number of instances is down. And what we are facing right now is a market that's not very enthusiastic about the product that we're providing.
Can you elaborate on that just a little bit? Like, define the product for the people who are watching.
The product is outdoor hospitality. I would say overnight stays.
Okay.
Within hospitality, but it generalizes to other types of outdoor recreation, whether it's hiking, canoeing, kayaking, all those. They're down. They're down in instances, but there's more people participating. I think it's very clear. So, like where I live in rural Maine, it's an outdoor rec destination. Our roads are packed every weekend, year round. But that doesn't mean that everybody's doing better business. It means some are, but a lot of those people are going up and they're going home. So what the industry has done, and you alluded to this, Brian, a little bit, is it's like they always do what they've always done. They do the same things. And it's like in the past, you could kind of get away with that. Like you could be a campground, and just because of where you're at, you could expect to be sold out on certain weekends, and you would have a certain occupancy rate. But we live in a different era now, where the consumer, the traveler, has a different mindset and a different set of behaviors. When they start out on their weekend, in many cases, it's like, well, this is a day trip. I'm going to go up and I'm going to go hiking, or I'm going to tube a river, and I'm going home. Or they may stop at a hotel or motel for an overnight on their way home, but they're not camping. They're not staying at outdoor resorts, and there's a number of reasons for that. I'm calling it, and I'm actually, this is something I'm working on. I'm just calling it the 3 C's: comfort, convenience, and cost.
Okay.
It's like this is where we're at, and you have to address all 3 of them. You can't just address one of them. And
Well, let's take it. Let's take it. Let's take it. Right. I don't want to interrupt you, but let's take it. Like comfort, convenience, cost. What does comfort mean to you? Let's dissect that.
comfort can be physical and emotional. It's like the physical comfort of where you stay and what you're doing. It's like, am I going to be physically comfortable? Are there going to be bugs? Is it going to be cold? Am I going to be wet? Am I going to sleep in a nice bed? All those, the basic physical comforts. Emotional comfort is, am I going to be safe? Am I going to feel good about the people I'm around? Am I going to feel good about, worrying about if things are going to be stolen, or are there a bunch of, it's just kind of a crazy place I'm at. There's some emotional comfort. Convenience. It's like, what do I have to have for gear? Do I have to bring a whole bunch of stuff? Do I have setup, tear down? Or can I just bring a bag of clothes, stay someplace, and go home? What do I need to bring with me? What do I need to plan for food? What do I need to do, during this adventure? And so now you have convenience. It's like, how convenient.
Well, hold on 1 second, because like I just want to I want to finish on comfort. So like, are you saying that comfort has the expectation or what is required for someone, and obviously everybody's different, to be comfortable has changed in the last few years, or is the definition of comfort still the same, and that's not really what's causing the change in behavior?
The definition hasn't changed. The number of people who are seeking that has changed.
Okay, so they're seeking, like, let's use just glamping as an example, right? They're seeking a
Correct.
more comfortable bed than I don't know how many campgrounds are out there. Greg, do you want to guess how many campgrounds have that thin, stupid blue plastic mattress that like you'll go to sleep on and be 20 years old and wake up being 70 years old?
8.5 out of 10. Too many. Yeah, too many. And that's an easy amenity to fix, but it seems expensive if you got 40 lodges, right? But to Scott's point, you can't trade that feeling of comfort, that guest satisfaction score, for a few extra bucks on a mattress. Like you can't.
And that's a
nor should you
larger
do it.
existential thing, right? And we will finish this conversation, Scott, about and your other 2, right? Because I think that what I'm about to say goes to that too. And I think I've said this to both of you in some capacity on calls that we've had. Like I think that we went through an era from really 2000, after the recession, when we started coming back, 2008, when we started coming back about 2011-ish. We went through a situation from 2011 to really post-COVID, early 2023-ish, give or take, whatever you want to say, where cash was free, where there was plenty of money that was available to you at close to 0% interest rate to either buy extra properties or to improve your property through adding multi-million-dollar water parks or $100,000 bathhouse. I don't even know if a bathhouse costs that much, but whatever. And it was free, and you could get it, and you could improve, and you could do everything, and life was easy, and it was great, and people were traveling, and inflation was low, and people's incomes kept going up to a certain extent, 3-5% every year, and it was wonderful. It was kind of a golden era, right? Of not the best it's ever been, but it consistently was easy. If you build it, they would come. And that coincided with social media. Like, yes, social media, MySpace, and everything else was around in 2008, 2009. Twitter, as it's called, was called then, was around. Facebook was just getting started on a college campus. But like, really, it started to take off 2011-ish. And like you had this situation where now Facebook, for example, was creating pages for businesses instead of friend profiles. And then everybody just was like, holy shit, we can just get on this thing and say like we have open RV sites and like they'll just come. Like, cool.
Mhm.
And so they did that, and then more people learned about it, and more people learned about it in 2012 and 13 and 14, until like everybody who like was willing to your credit, to say like I don't know, if you don't care about social media, that's your perception. You're not maybe aware of that, but and they started posting on. And at first it was Facebook, and then it was Instagram, and then it was whatever the platform of choice was of the day. But those two have kind of held their own throughout it, and like it was just a you build it, you will come. This is so easy. I don't need to do any other marketing. I don't need to care about my website. I don't need to run Google ads in most cases. I don't need to do anything except just go on social media. I'm going to hire my college kid or my niece or my nephew, and they're just going to post and put some hashtags, and life is wonderful. And that's the way it was. And it worked to a certain extent for a whole lot of people. From 2011 to really, like, I mean, 2018, 19 started to get iffy with the algorithm changes, right? But people were still doing it. And then obviously, like right when that started to kind of flip, where the algorithms started to take over and businesses didn't get as much visibility, then you had COVID. And then COVID sent our industry through the roof. And so our kind of that buried the lead for 3 or 4 years, right? Not 3 or 4 years, whatever, 2 or 3 years. And so it hasn't been hard on people for a very long time, is what I'm trying to say. Like, you as a campground owner have not had it difficult. And I know that there's certain people who have had it difficult in the industry. So I'm not making a blanket statement that everybody just had a cakewalk. But generally speaking, in all the things that could go wrong when you're building a business, you had it really damn easy since 2011. Would you guys agree with that? Or am I?
Yeah, it's been.
I don't think I'd slap easy on it.
No, I
Yeah,
was going to say,
sorry, Scott, go
generally
ahead.
speaking, absolutely. The growth, yeah, like when you look at average growth, if you take out COVID, 5 to 7% a year, and that's for pretty much every sector within outdoor hospitality. Glamping obviously has grown a little bit faster.
Mhm.
Even RVing, I know we talked about that a lot, but if they were doing all right, 5 to 7% growth
Yeah.
a year, which I think is very manageable. But yeah,
And you said, Greg, you wouldn't slap the word easy on it. And so I do want to, is that what you said? Yes.
Yeah, but your point, the climate was right, right? If you, I mean, yes, 5 to 7% per year. That's when my parents bought our park in '94, so we were kind of just still learning our way through it when everything hit in '08, because we didn't know what we were doing. We had no
Yeah.
business background. My dad, he thought because we were campers, we knew how to run a campground. That's if anybody's watching and you think that, turn around and go home. Don't do that. Go hire an expert or something. Please call me. I'll happily tell you why you're crazy. But you can do it. You can do it. We did it. Very little education, but we got it done. But '08 hit, and we were definitely
Yeah.
shitting it. I mean, yeah, we didn't know what the heck we were going to do. Then my parents had sunk in everything. We sold our home. They cashed in their retirements. They bought this place. Then '08 hits, and we kind of found out that we saw the addresses start to come. The overnight stays, the addresses got closer. Right, the market, our little circle shrunk, but they still came. And our long-term stays, which were a big part of the business, or you call them seasonals, we probably, had we had the funds, we could have doubled the amount of seasonal sites we had and filled every one of them, because
Yeah.
people stopped traveling. They started getting seasonal. So, okay, I'll pay you this one price, stay for 6 months. It's a lot cheaper. I still get value out of it. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't call it easy, but yeah, the climate was right. Yeah, absolutely.
And I should
Especially compared to
clarify
now.
too, like, right, because when you said that, I'm like, oh, well, like, there's like everything on this show, you're going to get offended with us. And if you allow us to explain for 2 seconds before you shut down the window, then you're going to be like, oh, okay, like he wasn't really as much of an asshole as I thought he was in that second. Of course it wasn't easy. It's still running a business. You still have to deal with customers. You still have to
Right.
get construction loans. You still have to deal with all the vendors. Like, it's not, but marketing was easy. Getting the people there once you had
Yes.
the thing was easy. And now it's not. And people are starting to find this out last year. And some of them are still have blinders on because they have never operated a campground under that climate before. And they don't know what to do, or they just want to pretend it doesn't exist, or they'll latch on to whatever the news of the day is. And again, like not getting into politics, but like now Trump's in office, the economy is going to be great. I mean, it could be, but like it's not going to solve the underlying issue of inflation. It's going to be right, and so we're not going to get into politics. But just picking one example, right? Like whatever that is a reason for you to just hang on and not do anything and not change, pivot, or adapt. But like it's different. We went through a whole year last year where like most of our clients that we talked to were down in camper nights in 2023. Almost everybody. Now, if you were managing your revenue correctly, and your ADR was high, then most people were also who did that. Most people were also up in revenue, and right through dynamic pricing, or through raising their prices year over year, or like whatever we've gone through in the last few years of the industry, where people have just generally jacked up prices as they've built new resorts and investors have come in. But like the camper nights were down, and you probably saw this at your park, and this is not going to stop. Like, I'm not saying they're going to drop 20% this year, and I'm not worried about our industry overall. I think there's lots of people who are, to your point when I walked away, Greg, like leaving you with the bombshell, right, of all the negativity. But like, I'm actually very happy and bullish on our industry, right? But it's what we're trying to communicate to you is you can't just sit on your ass anymore and just expect them to walk in your. And I'm not saying everybody's doing that, to be clear, okay? But like, there's probably a couple people who are watching this show who are sitting on their ass and not doing anything for marketing. Or they're doing the wrong thing because the last time they did marketing was 2010, right? Or they're hiring a marketing agency or a consultant who is giving them advice based on 2015, 16, or whatever it is.
Yep.
And the world is changing too rapidly for that. And so I want to talk about this in a second with you, Scott or Greg, whoever wants to take it. But like Scott has the data, especially as we flip to convenience. But I think this goes to all three of your points, Scott, is that, and we talked about this on Fireside Chats earlier a little bit, experience. And we had the lady on Fireside Chats from Hospitality Minnesota or whatever it was, who's a conglomeration. It's the only association I know of in the industry that has campgrounds and restaurants and hotels, all of hospitality in one association. And she said the same thing that we've been hearing and said on this show, and Greg and Scott and all of us have talked about, and I've passed along to clients, and like certainly we're not the only people talking about this, that experience is important. The experience that you provide suddenly matters way more than it did before because people have less money. Like, I'm guilty of this. I haven't looked at a price of a piece of fruit in 10 years. But like, and that's my perspective. And that's like, I honestly hate myself sometimes for not understanding the pain that some people are going through. And I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination, right? But like, this is different. People are hurting and they're going to continue to be hurting. Inflation is very high. The same way that you're hurting as a park owner because your insurance went up and your electricity costs went up, the consumers are hurting too. And everybody's looking at the business owner and blaming them for raising prices. And the business owners are looking at the people and blaming, or like everybody's blaming everybody, right? But it is what it is. Your pocketbook is hurting. Your consumer pocketbook is hurting more. And they have choice now. It's not where everything is full and they can go to the last thing that's possibly available during COVID and they just have to stay there, right? Because there's so many people traveling. Like, it's different. And I know I'm probably long-winded and I need to shut up at some point. But I'll give you an opportunity to be long-winded too, guys. But like, it's different. You have to sit down and you have to assess your business and you have to understand your customers and where they're coming from and what they want and why they're there. And that may have changed from 2 years ago because they don't travel as much anymore. Maybe you need to become a local focused park or more seasonal versus overnight or whatever the thing may be. But you need to understand that audience and you need to go out and talk to them like they want to be talked to from a marketing standpoint. But then you need to deliver something at your property that's actually different. Why should they come to you? Like, stop telling me that you have a pool that opened on Memorial Day, and that's why they should come, or a 9-hole miniature golf course, and that's why they should come. Like, that's a commodity. Wi-Fi is I don't care how many times you have a session at the next conference about how Wi-Fi is important. Like, if you're not on that train, like, I don't know what to tell you. You probably can't be saved at this point. I'm just kidding. You can always be saved. But like like Wi-Fi or a playground or a pool, it's not enough to pave your sites. It's not enough to throw up a couple pieces of patio furniture or a picnic table on your site anymore, because they have choice and all your competitors have the same thing you have. So how are you going to differentiate yourself? And the lady from Hospitality Minnesota gave a great answer. It's not, obviously there's not a blanket answer. There's 10,000 different things. And I want you to touch on this in a second, Scott or Greg, or probably Greg first from a consulting standpoint, right? And then we'll go back to data. But like, you have to set yourself apart. And the lady from Hospitality Minnesota said that the place where that starts is, well, hospitality, right? Put a smile on your face, act nice to people, pretend, like, be real in some cases if you can, but if not, pretend that you're super happy to see that person, even if they're screaming in your face, right? And it doesn't mean the customer's always right. They're not, but it means that you have to pretend they're right in that moment. Otherwise, you're going to get a negative review or whatever else. And so you've got, whether it's warm cookies or it doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar water park, but you got to do something to set yourself apart, because otherwise you're in some deep trouble, I think, in 2025. Greg?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the experience. That's how you drive it, without question. It's from the moment they pull in. How did they find your place when they got there? How were they greeted? How did everything go from the second they pulled in the driveway? How did it look? How did it feel? How did it freaking smell and taste? All of that. That is how you set yourself apart. It's the experiential side. And I think the positive side, because I feel like some of this conversation, I feel like we should like dim the lights. It's gotten a little doom and gloom here for a minute. But the positive side though, and
The
what you're
positive side,
saying
nobody's fucking doing
right
it, so you can
now,
do it and take and go, woo.
right? That's it. That is it. And the amount of data that we have
Hold on, Scott's going to
available
the
to us
washroom so we can
from
talk about
people
him.
like
Okay, sorry.
Scott, from people like
Oh.
he's going to check on the dogs, make sure they're
Go
not
ahead.
chewing anybody's leg off. They're beautiful dogs, by the way. I love seeing them. The next time I'm going to bring mine, you should
Mine's
bring
at
yours.
my
We'll do a dog
feet.
show.
So
We'll all
go
have the
ahead. Sorry.
dogs on. No, that's, and look at Scott's. Look at the dog. Where'd you go, Dad?
Lisa, put that
Can
up
I
there.
check
Like,
in?
you can stay on the middle
There's,
one, Lisa, and just drag us around. That little one? Yeah.
there's never been.
Oh, now she cut
There
off
he
the
is.
dog. I just told her to
Where'd
cut
Dad
off the
go?
dog. That was my fault. What did he?
There he is.
Oh, he's like,
There he
Scott
is.
left me and shut the door.
How
To
dare you?
be clear, guys, campground
the-
owners, this is a bad experience for your guest in your house, which is the dog in this case.
Yes.
Okay, go
That's
ahead, Greg.
right. No, but the amount of, so not only is maybe nobody else doing it, maybe nobody else is really focusing in your particular market. Your competitors are not focusing on their the competitive advantage that they could get through experience, through super high level. And think about what is your cost? What is your added cost to take the customer experience you're giving now and just ratchet it up a bit? It's not a lot. Your employees are already there, or you're already there. It doesn't take much. It just takes, you just have to have the will to do it. Figure out a way to do it. We my park, we one of the toughest things about short-termers arriving at my place, we had, so when you enter the park, you come up a hill on a curve, and as soon as you come around the curve, you're at a gate. So one 40-foot motorhome towing meant that the next people waiting in our stacking area were over the side of this hill, which means that anybody that's exiting can't even see this giant art. It was a mess. So we implement reverse registration. So what's that? When they get there, we don't let them get out of the car. We bust out the door. We've got the arrival list in hand. We meet them. We greet them by name. We call their escort. We put them through the gate before they can even get out. We just tell them, come on back at your leisure. Come back and register. That's a differentiator. That's so simple. I feel like everybody should do it, but they don't. And
Right.
not
everybody
everybody
has the hill, to your
right?
point,
It's
but there's
not
something.
right. But even if you have, but there's, you find that thing, and that's just one thing. Then after that, are you checking in with them after they got on site? Are you going around and I forget who I heard it from, but are you going around your park and trying to catch people doing something right? Because a lot of owners ride around and they try to catch people that, oh, you got a dog off a leash, I got a golf cart riding over here. Sure, you got to look for that stuff, but do you occasionally ride around, try to find your customers doing something right? There's all these things you could do to differentiate yourself. And they're so simple that sometimes they're just easy to overlook. But the positive side to everything you were saying before, what I was trying to say, it maybe sounded a little doom and gloom to people, but the amount of data and the amount of places that you can go to ask for advice on this between state associations, forums online, between social media, owners groups, the amount of places, folks like Scott and Modern Campground, the KOA North American Camping Report, there are gems in there just waiting to
Yep.
be distilled that you can then apply to your operation and get that next level of customer service, that next level of experience, because that's really what people are looking for. It's the experience. Because to your point, does everybody have a playground? Yep. Does everybody have a pool? No, but a lot of parks have a pool. I felt like this specifically when we converted to a KOA. I converted us to a KOA in 2012, and all I could think is, now I got this yellow shirt on, and yes, they're helping me. That I learned a lot, and they helped me take my guest experience up, because they really inspired me through a lot of the things that I learned through KOA corporate and other owners that I met. But how the hell do I, if now, okay, so if somebody goes on a trip and they stay at a bunch of KOAs, how do they remember one to the next? Everybody's wearing a yellow
Mhm.
shirt. Everybody's got a pool. Is there a jump pad? Yep, probably. Is there, there's all these things that people are setting out to do because they see it working for the other guy. And that's nothing wrong with that. If that is working for the other guy, you might have room for it at your park. But what experience do you offer by adding that thing that everybody else has? And how do you ingrain yourself in that customer's memory when they get home? Are they going to remember you, or is it going to be like the perfume counter where you walk past 3 or 4 associates, they're all squirting stuff in your face, and by the time you get to the end of it, it all stinks the same? So there's got to be a way that you can pull that out and make a unique experience at your park that they'll go, oh yeah, you know what? We did stay at a bunch of KOAs, but man, I remember Homerville because
But to your point,
this,
they have to do
because
that
they did
now, and that's
this.
the point. You didn't necessarily before.
Yes.
And so if you look at KOA, there's a lot of value in the brand, like a ton of
A
value in
ton.
the brand.
But you still have to play your cards right as an
Yes, but
individual
you have
owner.
to do those more today than you had to do in
Yeah,
2012 or 2019 or 2000 whatever, 16, because
absolutely.
yes, the KOA brand and the brilliant people who are working at corporate on your behalf tirelessly day in and day out are gonna bring probably more people to your park in an era of an
Absolutely.
economic downturn than an individual franchise who doesn't know what KOA does. So there's a ton of value to that KOA brand, but then there's still a
Yep.
ceiling where you have to say, how do I differentiate myself now? Because if we go into a situation in the economy, and I don't know where we're going to go, but if it continues to bleed slowly or crash big, whatever happens, that extra branding effort by like they can only take you so far, is what I'm trying to say. They can take you
Yes.
far,
Yeah, you are
right,
responsible
like,
for
they
that
can
next
take you
step.
pretty
Yeah.
damn far because 'cause they're
Yep.
great, but they can't take you all the way in a
They
down
are great.
economy.
Nope. No, that's your job.
Yeah, and it's
Not
Scott,
your job. That's
what do
your
you think of
job.
all this?
Yeah.
How was your washroom trip?
Everything that I wanted it to be.
Good. Okay,
So
go ahead, Scott.
I'm just answering the question. Um,
Well, it's unfiltered, why can't we ask? I'm just making sure you're comfortable, man. We were talking about comfort, to be
Okay.
fair.
All right.
Okay, convenience
I'm
now.
at the point in my life
All
where
right.
it's really hard to be embarrassed about anything, because there's a certain point where it's like you've seen and heard it all. So
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
I've embarrassed myself enough over time that it doesn't really matter anymore. But the almost to kind of go back to what kind of sparked this recent conversation is thinking about what's your starting point. What is your starting point? And yeah, and I said this in a meeting recently, and at first I had some looks, and that is from a strategic point of view, like how do you approach anything? And my point is, you approach it as if everything is a threat, as if
Talking
you're
about me turning it dark, Craig. Sorry, go ahead.
and and I say this because, for example, if you're an individual campground, your assumption for 2025 is camper nights are going to be down. Start there.
Yeah.
That's where you start. It's like if you're in the RV industry, assume that sales are going to be down. Just assume that, because one, there's evidence to show that that could be real, but two, that grounds you. That grounds you in a place where you're going to approach everything you do differently. If you think that your competitor 10 miles away, is doing something better, and that they're doing something to attract guests that maybe pulling away from you, assume that they are. Just assume that they're doing that. It's kind of, taking that the point of view that the threats are there. They may or may not be real, but that's where you start. Now start gathering information, start gathering your data, start looking at your market, start, hire your experts, all those things, and then figure out, are these threats real or not? But if you don't start there, you won't ask the critical questions. Because that's part of what people don't do, is they don't ask those questions. They start from a point of things are going to be great. If that's where you start, then you're putting a lot at risk.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's great to be optimistic, but be realistic.
exactly, I think it's okay. If you're in front of your staff, you're going to say we're going to have a great year. It's going to be great. That's fine. In the meantime, you're going to say we need to make some adjustments here so we can make this a great year. That obviously that's two different situations, but again, the idea that there are threats out there. What are short-term rentals, Airbnbs, all that stuff a threat to any campground? Absolutely. That's what you're marketing against right now. If you go out there and look at your market, like the people who aren't staying with you, where are they staying? They're staying at Airbnbs. They're staying at these other short-term rentals. They're staying at hotels and motels. For the 3Cs, we can keep moving on that if you want, but that's what it's all about. And again, it's not to be fatalistic or too negative or dark, but again, if you start at that point, it's, again, strip everything away. It's the bottom line. Like, these threats come from everywhere. Plan for them, and then guess what? You'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting balance and an interesting dynamic between that, because sometimes you want, like, everybody tells you, let's be optimistic. Let's go to these, let's just make it up, conferences, right? And go to all these classes and like come away and you've learned all this new knowledge. But like, all of us know, and all of us are guilty of it, that we've gone to a conference and been like, yep, I'm going to take that and turn it into action. And then there's like 2% of the people who are sitting in that room who actually do something with that knowledge. And that doesn't mean that you didn't intend to. It just means that you got busy, or you forgot, or there was other things that took priority, or you had to take your kids to hockey practice, or whatever it was, right? Something happened and you just lost it. But like, that's the bottom. Like, we talked about the Roman education thing on the show, on the Fireside Chats earlier, right? Like, that's the key, is critical thinking, is understanding that in the case of what you're talking about, Scott, if you think everything's negative and camper nights are going to be down, and we're wrong, then your camper nights are just going to be up higher than they would have been before, because of what you did anticipating they were going to be down.
Exactly.
So there's really no net negative here, but what you have to understand is how to ask those right questions, right?
Yep, exactly.
And so, like, should we go to your third thing that you were going to talk about? You're talking about convenience, or your second and third thing, or should we like teach them how to ask the right questions?
Well, let's go with the right questions first, because we're kind of in that theme and mode right now.
So let me share. Lisa's gonna share the screen here. You'll probably have to put me like in a big box this time, Lisa, so they can see everything. I'm down here in the corner, right? I'm just gonna hide my little window here so you guys can't see what else I've been doing. which is nothing bad, but so um, Chat GPT, there are, and we're going to talk a lot about AI in this podcast. It's been here for 2.5 years. Some of you probably remember when it first came out and it was all over the news and people were freaking out and super excited and played with a new toy, and you all, maybe not all of you, actually, now that's my perspective, right? So now, like, I'm realizing that it's much less people than I thought it was originally. Signed up for an account, went in there and like played around with it twice and then forgot about it. You need to go back to it, because in 2.5 years, it's turned into so much more. And we're not going to cover that all today on this one episode, right? But the important thing for you to understand is that, yes, this is a scary word, artificial intelligence technology. For a lot of you who own campgrounds, it is a, oh my God, I don't think I have the capacity to learn that, right? I don't know what to do with it. And what you're seeing on your screen in front of you is all you have to learn: how to text, how to type. There's no software. There is no learning curve. Yes, there's ways that you can make it better, which we'll cover on this show. But it literally is just a blinking box waiting for you to type in anything. And I guess one of the other things that I didn't realize too is that even this blinking box is scary to some people, right? Like, what do I type in there? What do I say? And the answer is literally what just came into your head. You can go into ChatGPT and you can say, what do I say to you? What do I do with you? How can you help me as a campground owner? All those things, right? But so this is how you get a good answer to your question, is you really need to learn how to critical think. And all of you are capable of critical thinking, to be clear. But as we talked about on the Fireside Chat show, there's not a lot of teaching of that in school. I never learned that in school, how to critical think. Did you, Greg or Scott? Did you learn how to critical think in school? Yeah.
No, absolutely
Yeah,
not. They
actually,
weren't.
I
No,
did. It was
they're not interested
part
in
of
teaching it.
what we did. It was.
Scott probably went to a private school.
I did not.
Rich elitist schools.
I did grades 1 through 8, and they taught me none of it.
Like, I'm not saying, again, like, we're not here to talk about education, but
Yeah.
so critical thinking, like, this is a skill that you must have. You must be able to stare at this box and understand that it's not as scary as you think to type something into it, even if you mess it up the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 times. Because I messed it up in the beginning, right? And so if you come in here and we're talking about getting answers to your questions, right? And there's, like, I've started doing this on LinkedIn a little bit, where I give the kind of post where I say, like, here's a prompt that you might ask on day one of sitting down in ChatGPT. Here's a revised prompt engineered version of it, and then explaining why that prompt is better. This is just like talking to a human. The more information that you give to the human, to your employee, to your friend, to your consultant, to your marketing expert, to your spouse, to your kid, whoever you're talking to, the more information you give to them, the better their answer back to you is going to be, the more relevant it's going to be to what you're actually asking them, right? So it's like your camper who comes to your store and you say, how did you find me? The internet. Okay, that's not a bad answer. I have some data. But like, if you ask, did you find me on social media or on Google? Or did you find me on Facebook or Google, for example? And then their answer might be like, no, I found you on TikTok, or I did, right? Then by being specific, you narrow the choices that they have, or you make them think about, if my choice doesn't fit into the narrow bucket you gave me. And then you get better data back. That's the same way as talking to AI. So
This is a perfect time to bring back the whiskey. It's distillation.
That's not a bad point. I'm going to take a sip of whiskey now.
If I may. You should do that. I've been doing it the whole time.
I noticed you were ahead of me.
But yeah, you're distilling, right? You're distilling.
Your
That
was
is
just
exactly
like a
what you're
weak
talking
whiskey,
about.
and you couldn't hang with me. Like, my Indian one was a little too tough. That's why I figured you were drinking too fast. So, but so you can see my screen, right? Like, we're not going to learn how to prompt engineer in one class together. We're not going to learn how to do all the things in one class together. And arguably, I should have probably been doing this, and I will try to do some videos that are basic entry-level stuff on my own on LinkedIn to share with you guys. But like, so we're not going to learn all that. But look at the input here that you can think about. If you're assuming that everything is better than you, right? Then what your first assumption should be, and I recognize how this is going to sound coming out of my mouth, is that somehow for someone, you suck. Does that make sense? Not for everybody, not even for the majority, but somehow to someone, whether they prefer luxury or boondocking or off the highway or close to the highway or hanging out with young people or old people or transient or seasonal, somehow to someone, you suck. Does that make sense? You guys agree with that?
Yep.
Yeah, especially if you have a cat or are married. I think you definitely
have a-
suck to
Oh,
someone
okay.
if you have one.
And to be clear, like that is
A lot of my jokes don't
well, I
land;
just
they
want
just
to point
stay in a
out
holding
too,
pattern.
because again,
So
I
if
said
there's a
like don't
boom up
turn
there,
us
it's
off
like,
immediately, allow us to explain. Just to be clear, like I recognize there are 3 guys on this show, but like we're not talking
yes.
about women always.
Mm-mm. That's why I said
Yes,
if you
like
are
if you're
married,
married, which
yeah,
is
that
like
goes
yeah, it goes
that
both
goes both
ways.
ways. Yeah,
And sorry guys, like
yeah,
are you both married? I know you're married, Greg. Are you married, Scott?
indeed.
No, but we've been together for a long time.
Okay, so you're in a committed relationship. That's fine.
Yes.
It's the same thing. It's just a piece of paper. Which
So then you
probably
get it. Yep.
like we just lost
Then you
half
get
our
it.
audience there. People were like, "How dare you?"
Yes,
Right?
easily.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Between married people and cat
Well, on the
people, I got
certificate,
rid of them
right?
all.
Like me, because how dare you say it's just a certificate? That's just my opinion,
That's
right?
right.
Like whatever. I'm in a committed relationship too. But anyway, so ChatGPT, right? But you suck. There's someone somewhere that you suck to. So figure out what your weaknesses are first. So let's do this. I need to make sure this is completely random. So I want to go to Google Maps and I want to zoom out and I want you, Scott, to pick a state in the United States. I don't care what it is, just pick any state.
Oh, I have to right now.
Yeah.
Michigan.
Okay. So we're gonna, and I'm just going slow here because like I normally have a mouse and I have a trackpad now, so I got to get another mouse because Lisa's using mine. All right, Greg, you pick North or South Michigan?
North,
Okay.
definitely north.
And then we're just gonna type in, like we really should zoom in further. Well, like just to make this completely random, Scott, RV park, RV resort, or campground? What am I searching for?
Let's go RV park.
Okay. And then Greg, pick one.
The one I was going to pick is not on there, so let's go.
I mean, that's good. We want it to be random.
Yeah, I like, Camp Grayling is right in the middle. Let's throw the dart
right.
for right in the
So
center.
Camp Grayling, let's see. Do they have a? Oh, they don't have a website. So pick another one. We need a website. That's another problem.
Okay,
Don't even
well,
get
we know
started
we're
on that
going to get
conversation.
one at. I bet you. I know Timber Ridge got one. I know Timber Ridge has one there. They've
So
got a
Timber
website.
Ridge Resort. So we're going to copy that. So if you go into ChatGPT, and there are all kinds of different, like they're called models underneath this toggle switch, but when you log in, you're probably going to default to ChatGPT 4.0. You have access for this thing to be able to search the internet from here if you ask it to. And there is ChatGPT search, which we'll get into in another conversation, but like it does, generally speaking, have the ability to access the internet, whether this is on or off. So go into here and say, like, I run a campground called Timber Ridge RV Resort.
Timber Ridge RV Resort.
And
yep.
here is my website, paste it. Can you please look it over and tell me what kind of people do not want to stay with me? Nobody thinks to ask that because they always want to know who would, right? So now here's Timber Ridge RV Resort offers a variety of amenities and activities designed to, I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm just going to read it for the podcast people who might be listening on the audio. Offers a variety of amenities and activities designed to cater to families and outdoor enthusiasts. However, certain individuals might find that the resort does not align with their preferences. Seekers of secluded or primitive camping, The resort provides full hookup sites and various recreational facilities, which may not appeal to those desiring a more secluded or primitive camping experience. A desire for absolute tranquility. With numerous family-friendly activities and events, the resort can be lively, potentially deterring guests who prefer a quiet and serene environment. Preference for unstructured environments. The resort's organized activities and amenities might not suit individuals who favor unstructured, spontaneous camping experiences. While Timber Ridge RV Resort excels in providing a comprehensive camping experience, it may not meet the expectations of those seeking a more minimalist or tranquil setting. So now you know who thinks you suck, right? And then you can say, like, well, give me, are there more types of people, right? As an example. And I don't know what the answer is, right? So, like, yes, there's more people that think you suck. That's always what you want to hear, right? As a business owner. Yes, there's. But then you can see here, right? Like, it'll give you, like, if you prompt it versus the internet, it'll give you actually a better answer here. And so what you know from this is these are the people you should not be marketing to first. That doesn't mean that you can't later adjust your business model and add something that appeals to these people in order to expand your audience. But right now, the way you are constructed in an objective, unbiased opinion, recognizing that maybe you've never logged into ChatGPT, but this thing knows the entire internet and all the history of it and all the pages and all the people and all the things they posted everywhere. It's fairly accurate. I think Scott and I have gone back and forth on the data sets of all the geeky things we've gotten into, like buyer personas and market research, and it's fairly accurate, right, Scott, from a data perspective?
Yep. It does a pretty good job of finding good sources.
And so here you see, right, like some of this you as the owner, and I don't know this owner, and I'm not putting myself in their shoes and assuming, but I would think that, like, all right, off the grid campers, I already know that. I'm fine with not appealing to that. I'm fine with not appealing to hardcore boondockers, which is number 2 on the list. I'm fine not appealing to budget travelers seeking rock bottom prices. I'm just reading this out for the podcast people, right? I'm fine not necessarily seeking the solitude seekers and quiet purists. I'm fine not appealing to the late night party enthusiasts. But, oh man, we're at number 6. High-end luxury travelers? I want those people at my park. I need to market to those people and they'll just come. But if you're not a resort that is meeting the expectations of what a high-end luxury traveler wants, you can throw yourself in front of them for tens of millions of dollars on Facebook and Google Ads, and they're not coming. They might click to your website and inflate your stats and make it look good. Like, oh, I'm getting more clicks from Google Ads and more clicks from Facebook ads and social media, but they're not coming. They're not converting. Some might, but the amount of money you spend to get that 1 out of 100, or whatever the number is not worth it. So start with your low-hanging fruit first. So strictly seasonal travel. And then you can just continue the conversation and you can say, like, well, okay, what about the people who would stay with me, right? So, okay. So who should I run a marketing campaign towards first that would come? And then for your first marketing campaign, you should target families, retirees, and outdoor-loving RV travelers who value amenities, communities, and fun. Here's who to focus on and how to market to them effectively. Top priority audiences for marketing. Like, again, this is gold if you're looking at this, right? Families with kids age 5 to 15. Why? They seek safe, fun, and activity-filled vacations. Marketing message. It's giving you a marketing message. Unforgettable family fun at Timber Ridge RV Resort, where adventure and relaxation meet. Where to reach them? Facebook groups, Instagram, family travel influencers, Google Ads, and family travel blogs. And then it goes on to retirees and snowbirds, weekend and seasonal campers, RV clubs and groups, outdoor enthusiasts and adventure seekers. And here's the point of this, right? There is an audience out there for you that is big enough that already likes what you're doing, provided you're half putting your heart into your campground even, right? It doesn't even take much effort. That is enough to fill up your park. Unless maybe you're like a 2,000 site overbuilt RV resort during the pandemic or something. But there's probably, if you've done any semblance of research, if you work with a consultant like Greg at Camp Strategy, if you looked at your market demographics before you built a park, chances are good that there is an audience out there that is big enough, if you do your marketing correctly, which is a huge, massive statement that we will dive into at some point on one of these episodes, that will fill your park. Would you generally agree with that, guys? Or?
Absolutely. It's one of those things where
Yeah, of course.
it's like, I think what a lot of campgrounds forget is market to who you want to be in your park, who fits your park. I think that's exactly what you just did, Brian, is show. It's like, find those people who fit your park. Don't market to people who don't fit with what you offer. It's and if you want a different, customer profile, then maybe you need to make some changes. But the bottom line is like, yeah, if your park it doesn't fit that demographic, don't try bringing them in. Find the ones who are out there. And I agree, Brian. There's people out there who fit the profile of your park, unless your park is terrible. It's like,
Or
but
you build it in the middle of nowhere.
yeah,
Kep was talking about on the show
Yep.
earlier. Somebody built like a huge destination resort in the middle of Wyoming, and he's like, "You should advertise that as the middle of nowhere RV park," but they don't. Like that. So yeah, unless you're the Wyoming Park, whoever you are, they're probably watching the show. They were like, "We're the only people left who are watching your show. We're closing it now." So
but yeah, it's true. It's like,
And that applies to businesses across the board, right? If you don't identify who your target customer is, who your ideal customer is, and target those people, if you're trying to just blast it out to the universe and hope that it reaches those people, you're in trouble. You have to know who you serve and who you want to serve, who you're set up to serve. Who, if you don't know that and then target those people strategically, you're in trouble. So it's not just campground business, that's business in
yeah, I
general.
mean, and that's like the thing is I get like, no, I can't even say that because that's a lie, and we promise not to lie. I don't get how people don't understand this because I'm in it every day, right? I try to have
Yeah.
empathy.
Perspective,
Yeah,
baby.
I try to have empathy for
Perspective.
how they don't do it. But like it's the same way if you put yourself in a position of a campground owner who's owned their park for a number of years, or even like if you haven't, like and you're trying to do, for example, a billboard, right? There's well, there should be a little bit of science behind that. Like even to the point of like which road do they take to get to my park, right? Because otherwise you're just going to throw up a billboard on a road and nobody's going to drive by it and see it. So there's got to be some thought behind that. Now that billboard thought of which road doesn't nearly take as much thought as some of this stuff does that we're talking about now, that we're going to try to help you work through and understand, right? But like the answer to all your questions is right there in front of you in ChatGPT. You can continue that conversation down that path and you can say, like, help me understand what is the best place to reach this. Order it in 1 to 10 fashion. And then if it says, I don't know what it's going to say, but say Facebook is number one. Okay, what should my strategy be on Facebook? Should it be posting on regular organic social for free? Should it be running an ad campaign? Okay, it should be posting on Facebook social. All right, what is the top 4 things that I should be talking about on Facebook to help people find me and make sure that I'm the best place for them to stay? Okay, the first one is whatever it is. How do I say that on Facebook to people? Give me 10 examples of social media posts I should write that resonate with them. Like the answer to all your questions is that little box that's free. It's free. Like it's free. Why are you not using it? And you can take it all the way to the thing like we're not even going to talk about what I shared with you last night, Greg. We'll get there. I don't know how many episodes it'll take us to get there. But but you can have it build an ideal customer profile for you. Is it going to be great when you just prompt it to say that based on the conversation we just had? Of course not. But it's going to be a starting point. Write me an audience style guide. What do people think about me? Like all that. And so just the more you play with it, like I had so many clients come to me in the first year after this came out, and they're like, I just don't understand how to use this. And one, like, I don't know, like if he'll bless me talking about him, was Mike Harrison, like early on, right? Mike came to me and recognized this. He said, I just don't understand how to use this. I said, Mike, don't even think about it from work standpoint. Go home, sit on your couch with your family. And when you're sitting around watching TV, just pull out your phone and be like, tell me about Tom Cruise and his role in this movie. Or how many other action movies did Tom Cruise appear in? Or write me a funny kids song about this movie I'm watching that's a Disney movie for my daughter to be entertained. And like just start there and see what it spits out and read the giggly funny song to your daughter and make her laugh. And then you'll be like, I mean, I'd like to make my daughter laugh a few more times, right? Let me just continue asking it questions. Or tomorrow night, I'll do the same thing with the movie and we'll have another funny song about the movie we're watching. And the more you talk to it, and the more you understand that it's not a scary black hole thing that you need to be nervous about, and that it will actually do value to you, both from your business and your personal life and everything else, the more you respect it. Like I think what was the question that we were going to talk about? How nature or how tech can enhance your nature experiences? Is that what we were going to talk about? Something like that?
I think that was it. Yeah, I think that might be
Well,
another show
anyways,
at this
but like,
point.
I mean, generally speaking, we're just going to come up with like,
Yeah,
like, I mean, that's the answer to the question. How tech can enhance your nature experience. It's one of the answers to the question. Is like, it's the same thing. Like we sell this chatbots for people, right? That people can like get 24/7 customer service. Well, I don't want people talking to tech. I don't want people involved in tech in the camping experience. Is frequently some pushback we got in the early days, right? And the answer is well, but that tech is just going to get their questions answered faster, get them to your park faster, and so they can
yeah,
enjoy nature more. Don't you want that? And so, like again, yeah, you're right. It's probably another show, but that's the idea here is like realize it's not a scary black hole and it can help you, but also like, and I know I know we didn't ever put a hard stop to this, but also like we all have lives at the same point, so it's coming up on 2 hours here in a minute. Um, but also like this stuff is not waiting for you to adopt it, and I think that's important to briefly set the tone of this as we talk about AI here. Like at this point, and I recognize how this sounds. At this point, if you are a professional, not a campground owner, to be clear, someone who works in a job whose responsibility it is to do a repetitive task on a computer, whether that's accounting or bookkeeping or Word documents or searches or research or 10,000 other things, if that is your job in some capacity and you have not touched ChatGPT yet and you don't know how to use it, you've never logged into it before, you are going to get laid off in the next 2 years. I believe that. Like, I don't think at this point that you have a chance to catch up to the other people who have. And I recognize how that sounds, and I recognize how controversial that is. And I'm not saying that you can't learn really quick and catch up because there's a whole lot of people who haven't. But there's a whole lot of people who have, and the people who are going to take your job are the people who have learned AI already and can do your job 100 times faster than you. There's a man, Jason Calacanis, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, who's an early investor in Uber. He's got a $50 million venture capital fund. He hosts the All In podcast with what used to be David Sachs, who's now in Trump's administration. I think he makes guest appearances now, but a couple other people. And I was watching one of his podcasts, and he said, you know, one of the things that like we do at our company and we do with the people that we invest in from our fund is we break the employees down into 3 groups. One is the top performers who have adopted like AI completely and obsessively. This is like a Brian adopting AI, right? And those people, we put them into a bucket. And then the second bucket we put into is the people who will use AI and who are willing, who kind of sort of know it, right? But only really use it if they're told to or have to or have no other choice. And then the third bucket is the people who have never touched AI before, which is the majority of people. These are his words, to be clear. He said, the people, we figured this out and measured this. The people at the top of that, the top people who always obsessively use AI like Brian, are 10 times more productive than the people who only casually use ChatGPT. And they are 100 times more productive than the people who have never touched it before. So as you read these news stories that are coming out recently about these tech companies that are having like performance layoffs, that's exactly what's happening. Is they are laying off the people who have not embraced AI. Not 100%, but most of it is. That's their code for that. And that's what's going to start to happen around the rest of the industry. So you have to learn this. Yes, as a campground owner, because it's going to help your business in all kinds of ways we're going to talk about. But this is fast. So Lisa, share my screen real quick one more time, and then I want to like let you guys have a chance to talk. because I know I've been running my mouth for too long. But like, obviously, I think if you disagreed with me, you'd tell me to shut up, right, guys?
I mean, do we have a
If you
choice?
disagree with me,
Or-
you can tell me to shut up, and I'll shut up. But you, generally speaking, okay. So like, I know that some of that is controversial. So here's what we're looking at here. I want to show you this, and like, this is publicly available. I don't even know if Greg and Scott have seen this. Have you seen this, guys? Have I showed you this? Okay.
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is using operator. All right.
So,
Cool.
like,
Okay.
this is all publicly available data, to be clear, but like, it happens to be about Verde Ranch RV Resort. But it's all like publicly available data, so it's not like anything proprietary or anything like that. So hopefully Mike Harrison doesn't get too upset that I'm sharing it here for everybody to see. It's not anything bad or good, right? It's just information. But let me see if I can blow this up a little bit so you guys can see it a little bit better. All right, so what you're going to see here is something that OpenAI released about 2 weeks ago, and it's called Operator. And there are other companies out there that have released technology like this, but none of it has been quite as easy to use yet as Operator is. This is only available to the people who have the ChatGPT Pro subscription in the United States. The only way I did it was connect to a VPN in Canada, because it's not even available up here. And so, like, this is only available to people in the United States on that Pro plan. And so then if you go, and basically what it does is you type in a prompt into operator.chatgpt.com, and instead of it answering you, it will go out and perform the action that you ask it to do on a browser. It will use a browser in the cloud. It will open up tabs. It will do everything you want without you touching the mouse, and it will execute your task. So this is a sped up video. You click share on that thing, right? And then it creates this whole huge condensed video so you can share it with people. And so what I did here that you're going to watch is the conversation can't be viewed. So we'll see if we just refresh that and maybe it'll work, because it was playing before. What you're going to see here is a prompt that I did that is not verbatim, which is basically like, I went and said, I own Verde Ranch RV Resort, and I want you to go and I want you to visit my reservation system, and I want you to look at my rates for July 4th weekend, and I want to stay there for 3 nights over July 4th, and I want you to take all my site types and all my prices for that day, and then I want you to go and I want you to put them into a spreadsheet for me, categorized by site type, and then I want you to go search out all my competitor parks in the area and put their rates in the spreadsheet too. Generally speaking, that's what I said. One prompt. And you can see what it's doing. I am not touching this mouse. And this is sped up, right? Like, this thing is creating the spreadsheet. Like, I gave it a public Google Doc link, right? To be able to kind of edit it and see. But like, it's going and looking at my booking engine and all the rates, and it's putting them in there for both. And I didn't even tell it to separate it, right? But it's putting the average nightly rate and then the total for 3 nights, which I don't even know if it's displayed on the booking engine. Maybe it was on CampSpot. I don't know. But now, like, it's literally going to look for the top RV parks in the city, and it's going to go down. There's an 8-minute video. We're not going to watch the whole thing, right? But like, this is here today. Like, this is going to be released to lots of other people soon who don't have the $200 a month plan. Millions of people who are going to be able to prompt this, and it's going to work a whole lot better. And what you're seeing right here is a basic example of, like, go find me a campground near whatever city, and I don't know, like, that has availability for this date. And eventually this thing is going to be intelligent enough to know kind of what you're looking for and ask follow-up questions and make sure it's the right place. But right now it's completely random. So like, this thing is going to get to the point in the next few months where like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, and then millions of people are going to be using this to go research all the travel plans. What is your plan for this? Because you, not all of you, but some of you don't even know how to prompt ChatGPT yet. This stuff isn't waiting for you. This stuff isn't the 1980s where the computers have come out and you're like, I'm not really a believer in that. I can wait 10, 20 years before I learn a computer program.
This is the conversation we were having earlier, Brian. These are the, if you keep denying this, you're the people that kept going to the library after the internet became available. And you say, I just don't trust anything I'm getting from there. But it's and technology is something that, I mean, it's followed us as a species. We look at, I love collecting artifacts. I go out and I hunt them in farm fields, and you find a beautiful arrowhead from whatever time period, and you look at that and you think, wow, this really primitive tool. That thing you're holding in your hand was ChatGPT at the time. It was the highest level of technology there was to get the job done. And if you didn't adopt that, you were really hungry, or you couldn't protect your family. If you couldn't figure out how to use it, how to make it work for you, you were in big trouble. And I think of, I went on a trip to Alaska with my, before I was married, with my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, and her parents, and we went to this tiny little village in a place called Kasan, and it took forever to get to it. Back this logging road, tiny little Lingot village, and people living on subsistence fishing, and it was beautiful to see. And my father-in-law told me a story. He had been there previously, and he saw a man carving a totem, and the guy was using a chainsaw. And he said, what do you think about you using that chainsaw? Like, your grandfather, did he carve these totems? Would he have used a chainsaw? And he said, I think he would have probably told me, of course you used the chainsaw, dummy. You don't think I used the most advanced tool that I had at the time, even though maybe it was, a plane or a chisel or just a knife or a hatchet. If I'd have had a chainsaw, I would have picked it up too. And he went back to using his chainsaw and carving the totem. It's no different. This is the chainsaw. This is the arrowhead. This is the time that we live in. It's the highest, best tool you can have. To not use it is to set yourself up, maybe not for failure, but it's to set yourself back for sure. Because to your point, the people who figure it out and use it and adopt it, they're going to move at 1,000 times the speed.
But that's not the
do.
only reason, right? And to be clear, and Scott, interrupt me if you have something to add, and I'll shut up. But that's not the only point, because that's easy sometimes for business owners to dismiss. If I'm busy, that's fine. Like, I just won't be productive as other people for the next 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the biggest problem that you have. The biggest problem that you have is there are 350 million weekly active users of ChatGPT. And that doesn't count all the stuff that you probably also haven't heard of, like Google's Gemini, which has something similar. The AI overviews that is happening in Google search that's putting it in front of 500 million people. The Apple has forced this in front of people on Siri using ChatGPT. This is everywhere. This is going to be in your speakers. It's going to be on your toaster. It's going to be on your Tesla. It's going to force adoption of people because the tech companies are forcing it in front of people. And when that happens, share my screen again, Lisa. When that happens, you're going to have a conversation like this where people go into ChatGPT, and they already are doing this, to be clear. What are the best campgrounds to stay at near, we'll just play Traverse City because that's up where we were, right? Traverse City, Michigan.
Yeah, that's where I'm from.
It's a nice place. I've hiked across the dunes up there. I didn't go down the super steep hill at the end, but I made it all the way across the dunes.
Yep, that's where I grew up.
Oh, and so here's your answer, right? So Traverse City, Michigan offers Traverse City State Park, Platte River Campground, Interlochen State Park, Holiday Park Campground, Leisure Pines Campground, and Traverse City KOA. Okay? If you're Timber Ridge, you literally don't exist.
Yep.
There's no page 2. There's the amount of people who will type into this box, is there anything else available, is like 0.00001%. The same amount of people who go to page 2 on Google. So if you are Timber Ridge, and sorry to pick on you, but you literally don't exist to anybody who's searching for this question. And the answer might be different every time. But this is why you have to pay attention. Because hundreds of millions of consumers are using tools like this more by the day and the hour. And they are asking natural conversation questions that are discovering where they should go and what they should do and where they should camp. And if you're not, like, for one, if you're not doing any SEO, which I would wager to say like at least 85% of campgrounds have no idea what that really means, let alone if even begin to hire a website designer who has done more than install an SEO plugin. But if you're not working on at least basic SEO or have a plan for how you appear for these questions in here, you are dead. Like there's a chance that you might get lucky, like these 5 parks, and show up in the list. But do you know why you're there? Do you know why you're ranked why Traverse City is on the bottom of the list and not the top of the list? I don't, as the AI expert person, but and neither does Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, by the way. But like, we know what helps you get visible in these search results. And so if you're ignoring this and you're not on this list, forget about all the things that we talked about earlier about the economy potentially going down and camper nights going down and all the other things. If the people who still are camping can't find you, what do you think is going to happen to your business? So like, I don't want to tell you to panic because you shouldn't, but you better damn well pay attention.
This is a good segue for me, and I hate to do this, but I have a pup that needs my attention at very specific times of the day for
We're going to
medication
end in
and
9
whatnot.
minutes, but you
So
want to end early?
are you going to end in 9 minutes? I'm going to give you 9 minutes.
2 hours is our
I
cap.
got,
We're not going past 2 hours.
I got about 4.5.
But like, I mean, I recognize how that sounds, and again, like our goal here is like to be unfiltered and straight shooting, and I recognize that my perception lens of how fast this is moving is different. But like, do you guys see the same thing here?
Sure, but my question would be, if I'm that
Sure.
campground that doesn't show up, and I go, Brian Searle, you are this expert in AI. It's like, what do I do? What solution would you offer them? What do they need to do to make that list? So when someone wants to go to Traverse City and stay in an RV park, like, how do you make that list when someone does a search?
Here's the answer. Share the screen again, Lisa. Mike, and obviously I'll have a better answer than this if you're actually working for me, but or working with me. But my campground isn't on
Yeah, I'm
the
not asking you to give
list.
away all the secrets, but
How do I make it appear there? Right? And then here's your starting point, right? And you can do this without hiring me. Get listed on popular travel and review websites. I'm just reading it out real quick, Scott, for everybody else.
And the reason I asked that question, Brian, is because of the earlier topic when you talked about critical thinking, critical questions. This is it. This is the critical question.
Yep.
Like if you're that campground owner, this is the question you need to ask. You need to ask either AI or bring in an expert, probably both. In this situation. So anyway, that was my point. It's like the whole notion of critical thinking is taking the lines of inquiry to the next level.
Yeah, and I don't want to be the person who hides behind well, I'm not going to tell you the answer if you don't hire me. But to a certain extent, it's a much longer, deeper conversation that's nuanced for each campground. But generally speaking, the answer is branding, like conversations about your business across the internet. And that's a wide range of different places. That's a nuanced answer, right? But like branding and backlinks are the two things that we know pretty well for sure. And there are lots of other things that go into it, right? But if you're coming at it from a starting point and for whatever reason you don't want to work with me or somebody else who has expertise in this, start there or ask the question.
One of the things I tell people all the time, if it's like work with experts, the expert could be, Chat GPT or the people who know the most about it, but find experts. It's like, I say it in my industry all the time, if you don't want to work with me, find someone who is an expert. That's part of the process. That's asking the right questions.
All right. So takeaways,
Absolutely.
Greg, for people who are watching the show in your mind of all the things we've talked about.
So tune in for episode 2 would be number 1, because we're going to continue the conversation, and we're going to continue the reciprocity, the giving back of knowledge, and hopefully the sharing of knowledge, and hopefully that
And it
just
won't
becomes
be,
a
to
big
be
loop.
clear, it won't be as negative. Like, we had to get the negativity out of the way to make sure that you paid attention.
And the next thing is, just to Brian's point and to Scott's point, whatever model it is, if it's Gemini or GPT or what are some of the other ones,
Claude.
Brian? There's Claude is another one that's
No,
really cool.
DeepSeek is what everybody probably
What's
heard about
the
in the thing, but that's
DeepSeek,
China.
right? You know what? Open up the box, like he said, and just type anything in it. The other night I asked it for the optimal temperature to deep fry my walleye fillets, and it asked me what kind of breading I was using, or was it going to be batter, and I answered it, and we had a by the time it was over, it was pairing wines with it, and I didn't prompt it for any of that. Like, it was just, it's a conversation. So if you think of it less like, it's not Google. You can't think of it like Google, and that's maybe everybody's first inclination because that's what they're used to. Think of it like a person, but like a person who's almost got like Oracle level knowledge, right? You can ask it anything about anything, and just see what happens from that. But continue, to Scott's point, then start getting critical with your questions. Okay, what's the next? What's the most distilled version of what I need to ask it? And that'll come with time. But just play with it. Get comfortable. You're going to be surprised how easy and how intuitive it is. And then you'll be making coffee in the morning and go, oh my God, wait, I never thought to ask it that. And that will be your aha moment. And then you'll really start to peel off different things from it. It happened for me really quickly. And I am by no means mega tech savvy. I can go online. I can do things. I can use, I can use my computer. I can, I can do basic stuff, but I was really shocked at how quickly it happened. So that's big takeaway for me is that if you can just go out and play with it, take 5 minutes a day and just play with it, you're
And
going to be shocked.
just briefly on the economy, what do you think about that? Just takeaways for the economy, what people should do.
Oh yeah, always play it conservatively. Again, Scott had a great approach. So did you. Don't start with the rosy picture, even if that's what you want. That's great, but maybe have a couple different scenarios that you're prepared for. And if you start with what did you throw up, Ryan? Flat or down 1.5%, something like that. If you start there, okay, you probably have a lot of room to ramp up. But if you start with I'm going to set my CapEx budget based on being up 30%. Yeah, maybe call me and let's have a conversation about that first. Definitely start with something that's realistic. It's got to be achievable, right? If that baseline is not achievable, you could have some issues coming up next year. But I do think, to your point, I think probably flat. I think flat is a win for this year, just because there's chaos all over the place right now, and without bringing politics in it, there's a lot of chaos in the economic forecast. So be prepared for that, and be prepared to move your model. If you take on a bunch of overnighters and you're not seeing that, maybe start marketing to folks that want to stay with you for a month. Maybe there's workers in your area that want to stay with you for a month. Fill those sites. That campsite is a banana. It's brown at the end of every day. Put somebody on it for whatever rate you can get.
All right, Scott, key takeaways, and then we'll wrap up.
My key takeaways are, to take like the AI stuff, even if you haven't started yet, start now. The best time to start was a year ago. The next best time to start is today, as the old cliche goes.
Absolutely.
Start it now. Just start using it. It's a tool. It's a conversation, and again, just peel everything away, and start at the basics, and just start asking the questions. Anytime I talk to anyone in this industry, anytime I present, I always invite people to ask questions, and I'm always surprised how few people actually do ask questions. It's like, ask them. I'm here. I'm ready to answer them. AI is ready to answer your questions, and ask one of us, and we'll get you an answer. But ask those questions, keep asking, keep inquiring. That to me is like a lot of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap up and say, like, I mean, I know that this took a little bit of a negative tone here in this first episode, but I really needed, I felt like I needed to set the stage for this. That like this is not going to be a negative thing every week. This is going to be a we're trying to help you thing, but you need to understand that not only are we trying to help you in a traditional sense, many consultants have done throughout the years in the industry and stuff like that. It's that we are trying to help you because this is different. The AI, the robots that are coming that we'll talk about in future weeks, like in a few years, that are going to be mowing the lawn at your campground in like less than 5 years. All these things, like this is moving faster than you've ever seen before, and you've got to pay attention and you've got to listen and you've got to understand what is possible. And we're here to help you do that. And so I had to rip the band-aid off because I needed you guys to understand what the economy is likely going to do, what your struggles are likely going to be, because I need you to pay attention. I need you to be willing to adopt it. I need you to be willing to act and not say I can just wait. So that wraps up Outwired episode number 1. Hopefully, we have at least half a viewer left who's awake. Uh, but watch the replay. It'll be available. We'll eventually sync this thing to all the podcast episode platforms and stuff like that. I'll do that in the next few days. But thank you, Greg, Scott. Where can they find more out about camp strategy and the work you do, Greg?
Yeah, absolutely. Campstrategy.com or find me
And
on
Scott,
LinkedIn.
Karen Consulting Group.
Absolutely. Go to our website, cadenconsultinggroup.com. We have a resource library on our website. I would invite anyone to visit that. There's tons of reports, all the reports we've done for a long time, blogs, topics. Visit and reach out. Again, ask questions.
Awesome. Well, I, for one, am looking forward to coming back next week and providing more value to people, hopefully with a little bit less doom and gloom and more action and sharing and knowledge. But until then, guys, have a great week and have a great night. See
All
ya.
right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Brian. See
Bye-bye.
you, Scott. Bye-bye.